Hello Titan Designers, I'm your host Mr. Granlund, coming to you live from Mr. Granlund Studios. I have another tutorial for you. This time we're going to be jumping into Pixlr, and this is for our shoe product design as well as our shoe box design. So first things first, let's take a look at Pixlr, and I always like to go to Pixlr E. It's possible to do this in Pixlr X, but all my directions are going to be in Pixlr E. So going to Pixlr E here, I've started on this, but I'm going to actually make a new project from the ground up. So we're going to click on Create New. I'm going to title this Shoe. Now a couple of notes. I like to work with this full HD size. It's good, it works well over the internet. If you have a slower internet, this is still going to work pretty good. If you have a faster internet and you want to try making a higher resolution image, you can select one of these other ones or even type in your own size here. I would say that the HD is probably the smallest size that I would want you to go. So go 1920 and up. Same thing with the height, go 1080 and up. So we're going to click Create, and here we are, and we're going to start with our background. What I like to do for a background is create a gradient. So the gradient tool is over here on the left, and if I hover my mouse on that tool, you can see what the gradient tool does, and it gives a description. If I click on the gradient tool, I have two types, radial and linear, and I have this box here where I can choose the colors that I want to use for my gradient. You may find that these other sample boxes here give you the kind of colors that you want. You also might find that you want to tweak these colors. So come in here, maybe make that pink a little bit lighter. Click on this other color, and maybe we'll make that darker. Now to make this gradient on this layer, you're going to click on the screen and drag. And it's going to make that gradient from that pink to that dark teal. Just like that. Radial is a little bit different. It kind of looks like that. So you might want to play around with this until you get things to look whatever, is the right look for you. I'm going to set these kind of close together here just to get my own look. And I'm going to do linear. And I'm going to have it go straight up and down. Now again, this is about your preferences and how you'd like this to look. So this could be any sort of colors. Now it's time to get the shoe. So there's two ways you can go. You can look for a shoe template, which is going to leave you with some line art sections that you can fill in. You can also go with a shoe on a white background. Now we get this question a lot. Can I do a cleat? Can I do a boot? Absolutely. You can also be specific about this as well. So for instance, if you want a cowboy boot, or maybe you want Nike Vapor 3 on a white background, you can come across those as well. So for instance, if you wanted to do something for like My Cleats, My Cause, a white cleat on a white background would be a great way to work. I'm going to go ahead and take this cleat, I'm going to copy it and bring it into Pixlr. Now I'm going to cut out the white background here. So on the left side, I click on the Wand Select tool, and since this is a flat color, it's going to be pretty easy for me to click on it. Now when I click on it, it selects all sorts of other stuff that's way too much. I don't need all that, okay? I can adjust the tolerance here so that it selects fewer pixels. So I bring the tolerance down to 10. That's looking a lot better. Clean up this underside of the cleat. And I would probably take my eraser tool and erase out all this extra stuff here too. Now, in order to get close to these cleats, I like to zoom in, and I may even try to use the polygon lasso tool so that my selections are just a little bit tighter than they would be otherwise. All right, now we can begin cutting out some of the assets and duplicating them on top. So I like to get the logo and the laces. So now I'm going to select the Nike logo, and I might want to increase the tolerance for this. Oh, too much. Now that I've selected out this Nike logo, I'm going to paste it on top because I want to make sure it's part of my design later. So now I'm going to go to my layers palette, and I'm going to click on the three dots here so I can go to the layer settings. And I can click on duplicate layer. That just duplicates the entire layer, and I just want the Nike logo. So I can also go to select, inverse selection, and hit delete. And that way, it gives me just the logo. Now there's an even easier way to do that as well. I could also just go to, with my selection there, I can go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. And it just pastes it as a new layer right on top. And I can just line that up like so. I'll do the same thing with the laces so that I have those available to just place on top as well. Now in decorating this shoe, there's a number of ways that we can do this. We can find pictures of textures. We can find pictures of images. We can also paint freehand on the shoe to create the designs that we want. So let me show you those three methods, okay? First, let's find a texture. So let's say we wanted to change the texture so it has a leather texture. If I just type in leather texture, I'm going to get a whole bunch of different colors, and I can narrow it down by color. So let's say I want a yellow leather texture and something nice and bold like this. So I'll copy that texture and I'll paste it into my shoe, Control V or Edit Paste. Now right now it's covering everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection around the part of the shoe that I want to be yellow. So I'm going to take this kind of top of the toe box here. I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool and click each point where I want the yellow leather to go. Now that we have that selection, I can turn the visibility of the yellow leather layer back on by clicking the checkbox. I have this selection still there, so now I'm going to invert it. So select, invert selection, and delete. Now that area has been made into that yellow leather. And I can continue doing each different section that I want as a different texture. And that way, my finished shoe design will have some different textures than it originally had. The second method I'm going to show you is how to use a picture. So let's say we wanted the shoe to be painted or in a photorealistic way. So let's say we wanted some mountains on the shoe. We could find a picture of mountains or maybe a galaxy, and we can copy that picture and then go back to our shoe, and just in the same way that we did before, we can cut out our texture or the part of the shoe that we want to have this be that galaxy picture. And so now I'll turn off the other layers, and I'm going to select the portion using the polygon lasso tool that I want to be that galaxy picture. But let's say I wanted to also add this heel cup part. I can go up to the selection mode, and it says new selection or add to selection. And I can also do this by holding shift. So I'm going to click on this and add to my selection. So now when I'm clicking a selection, it doesn't get rid of my first selection. Instead, it's adding to that selection. I'm going to turn that layer back on. I'm going to go to Select, Invert Selection, and make sure I'm clicked on the right image and then hit Delete. So now those portions of the shoe have been made to look like a galaxy. The last thing we can do is custom paint our shoe. Now this one's a little bit trickier and requires a little bit of setup. To do that, I'm going to make a duplicate of my shoe. So I'm right-clicking or clicking on the three dots on the shoe image, and I go to Duplicate Layer. Next, on that copy, I'm going to turn that into a multiply. So I'm going to go to Blend Mode and change that to multiply, and you'll notice it gets a little bit darker. That's enhancing the lines that are naturally in the shoe, kind of the shadows and the darkness. Now in between these two layers, I'm going to create a new layer. I can click on plus and go to empty, or I can go to the layer menu up at the top and click on new layer. Both ways work the same. Now on this new layer, I'm going to start painting. So now if I paint red, you'll notice that it's just covering things. And that's because of the layer order. I'm going to minimize history, and I'm going to minimize navigate. If I take this color layer and I put it in between the two shoes, you start to see the lines from the shoe above to come into play. And you can, what's nice is I'm painting on top of the shoe, but I'm not ruining the shoe texture. Now sometimes this has a good enough effect, but as I'm looking really close, I'm not satisfied with the believable look of this. I can try a couple of things. On my color layer, I can try going and trying one of these other blending modes, like maybe color, or multiply, or overlay. I could try all of them really and see which one works the best for me. I like multiply the best. The second thing I can do is try the transparency. Sometimes just turning the transparency down gives the right look to your paint job. And now anything I paint on this layer is going to look and transfer nicely to the layers beneath. And looks like it's just got a nice custom paint job. The tricky part about this is getting really crisp lines. What you can do to help is select an area first, and I'm using the polygon lasso tool, and then use your paintbrush. Now you notice the paint is only going in the area that I've selected. So sometimes using the selection tools as you're painting makes a huge difference in the overall thing. There's even ways to automatically select a layer. So for instance, we know we're just going to paint the shoe, and we don't want our paint to go outside the lines. If we click on the three dots, or if we click on the layer that's already been cut out, we can go to Select and go to Select Pixels. Now it just selects the outside of the shoe. If I click on my new layer and just start painting, our coloring stays on the shoe, which is great because we don't want to color the whole rest of the shoe. So you can very easily give the shoe an overall color. And then if we want to do a secondary color, we can again use our polygon selection tool and paint that in as well. Now that's a pretty hot looking shoe. Alright, I hope this tutorial helps you with coloring in and designing your overall shoe.